Uh-oh, they've started dropping odds, and don't look now, but one of the teams expected to maybe not win as many games are the Lions. We'll talk about them and everybody else here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
As a fact, it is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL show, joined by my Monday co-host, my man, Julian Council from Locked On Panthers, and we'll give it to you like you can't get nowhere else here on Locked On NFL. Make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen, we'll be there. All you got to do is tap in so you don't miss an episode, and you can become an everydayer like the everydayers are. All right, here's what we're going to do. By the time we get to the end of the show, we'll talk about draft strategies of the haves and the have-nots. That would be Philadelphia and the Dallas Cowboys today on that segment. Pickens and Metcalf. Sounds good on paper. That means it's a boom. But what happens in reality, especially when you have a certain quarterback, could mean it could be a bust. We'll discuss that. But we're going to start with over-under. Maybe we'll mention your team. Detroit, maybe taking a little bit of a step backwards. All right, that's a little bit of a loaded question because we do expect them to take a step backwards. But they, FanDuel has picked them, has put the number of the over-under at 10.5. Now, that would be alarming if you don't understand that there's only a few other teams ahead of them, and it's by one game, 11.5. But we do expect them to take a little bit of a dip, don't we, Julian?
Yeah, I think it's only natural when you lose Aaron Glenn to the Jets as their new head coach, and then, of course, Ben Johnson going over in division to Chicago, that there's going to be a drop-off as far as those guys being two of the top coordinators in the NFL the last couple of seasons. In particular, offensively, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Jared Goff. Back when he was with Sean McVay in L.A. early on, it worked out. They won a division title. They went to the Super Bowl, lost that game to New England. And in the years after that, it wasn't as up as it was. And there's a lot of people wondering what he would do in Detroit. We had not heard of Ben Johnson, and it was better than had ever been. Now, without Ben Johnson, has Jared Goff progressed enough to where he's not as reliant potentially on the play caller? Obviously, the play caller for defense and offense, they have to put the players in position to succeed. But can players overcome that at this point in time if they have to overcome anything at all? So that will be the one thing I think a lot of people are looking at, what Jared Goff looks like without Ben Johnson, now without Sean McVay as well.
It's a very, very good point. We're going to hear from Matt Derry of Locked On Lions, and then I'll come back and tell you why Jared Goff is the key to all of this stuff.
Was checking out FanDuel. As we talked about, FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL and of the Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Lions. And I was looking at FanDuel today, and I was looking at regular season win totals for this season. How does it stack up? What do they think in the division for the Lions, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago? And I found it interesting. The Lions over-under win total is 10.5. A year ago, it was at, I believe, 11.5. Lions won 15 games last year. 15. All right. Nobody expects, especially with this kind of schedule, and the road schedule is going to be brutal next season. Nobody expects. I mean, the Lions have to play the AFC North next year. They got to see Baltimore and Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland, whatever. But you know what I mean? It's going to be a difficult season next year from a scheduling perspective.
So I saw you smile when he said whatever, and I wanted to make sure that I put that in there because I'm going to start calling Matt Derry shade. There is nobody better than throwing shade at somebody who was just standing there and caught a drive-by. He does it every time, and I absolutely love it. He goes, yeah, they got to play Cleveland.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That reminds me of a couple of years ago, the crossover I did with him. As the Lions were on that heater at the end of the season, and Carolina had kind of turned things around. It was going to be Christmas Eve, and they were playing a game in Charlotte, and the Panthers ended up having the most rushing yards, most total yards offensive they've ever had in franchise history. And I had a lot of listeners hitting me up being like, yeah, what is that smug SOB in Detroit got to say now? It's like, guys, it's not It's not that big
not
of a
that
deal.
serious,
It's not
man.
that deep. All right. So I guess people were not happy.
Yeah. Because trust me, all you got to do is wait long enough, and the enemy of your enemy will become your friend, because you be mad at somebody else, and Matt will throw shade at them too. I'm telling you, man, he is the absolute best. But there's a point that you made earlier that I want to piggyback on a little bit. When you ask me who's the most important people in a franchise, I always say coach, GM, quarterback. Maybe not in that order, right? So they still got the same head coach who everybody likes, and everybody didn't at first when he was talking about biting kneecaps, but he's proven that he can he can be the catalyst for an organization and kind of set course. He gets along really well with Brad Holmes, the GM. They have a really, really good relationship. So that would tell me they'll be okay, and they won't fall off as bad when they lose those assistants. But as well as Jared Goff has played, and I'm going to tell you, I think he has played extremely well. I still don't think he's great. Shout out to Cam Newton. We ain't going to go down the whole game manager thing, but I think sometimes when a team loses all of these things, the quarterback still has to be somewhat great. I think it's the difference, and you can say Matthew Stafford ain't great, but he's better than Jared Goff career-wise. And I think the difference between the Rams and why nobody cares that they lose an entire half staff every year is because of the presence of Sean McVay. But Sean McVay's quarterback is Matthew Stafford and not Jared Goff.
Yeah, because even when Matthew, even when he was in Detroit.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was me. I said Matt. But even when he was up in Detroit, he still had a ton of like comeback game-winning drives. So this guy's been doing it for a long time. And yeah, he is a better player than Jared Goff. I think Jared has dramatically improved since he left LA. And I think he's taking the things that Sean McVay taught him and what Ben Johnson's taught him. And he's become easily a top 10 quarterback. But the bad taste I think that's left in people's mouth is from that loss against Washington. And now that Ben's not there, is that going to be more the norm? And it's not the first time you saw Jared Goff have one of those games last season. Think back that Sunday night game against Houston where he turned the ball over, I think 6 times. They still found a way to win. It's like, is that going to be the norm moving forward? I don't think so. But that's going to be concerning. And you have to look to like offensive line. They're going to still be fine. Like I look at the line of scrimmage before I even look at anything with these teams. And offensive line, they should be fine. There's going to be some serious questions on the defensive line as far as Aleem McNeil coming back from his knee injury and also Aiden Hutchinson coming back from the broken leg. And you would think he'd be fine as it's going to be a significant amount of time removed from that. But McNeil, that may be a guy who's not ready to go the beginning of the season. And what kind of impact does that have on them? So they still have the pieces. They'll have Jamison Williams. They still, of course, have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. Like
they're getting Aiden Hutchinson back.
Yeah. Like they still got plenty of talent. So I look at the players. Like if you got the guys, I'm not all that concerned about who the play caller is. But if you have those kind of injuries you're concerned about, and a quarterback that's still, I think the jury's still out on him, which maybe is not fair to Jared, but we got to see it again with somebody else. And I'm sure we'll probably tout whoever's his play caller next if he goes out there and plays well and say that, oh, they're the reason, when we probably should be giving Jared all the credit if it happens again under another play caller. So we'll see. Tough schedule. Didn't realize they're playing the AFC North this year. So that obviously is going to go into the over-under win total, even though we have no idea who's playing in any of those games at this point in time.
Is that his name? The offensive coordinator who was at Denver. He was at Denver, but he actually was in Detroit when they started this entire process. And Dan Campbell is giving him a lot of credit, man, as being really one of the main people. I believe that's his name. If it's not Morris, it's Morton.
Morton.
So he was a guy that they've given credit as the engineer, the guy that didn't get a lot of credit, and then he left and took some other opportunities. And now it's like, okay, well, we lost the teacher. Let's call his professor back. That still doesn't translate to game day victories, though. We'll have to see how it goes. Another day, another discussion about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation. All I can tell you is there was a throwing session in Los Angeles or in California involving DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers. I read quotes and some interesting things that Mike Tomlin said from the NFL meetings here in Florida. They're a little south of where I am right now. We'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is on fire. Julie and I were talking about it earlier, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on everything from buzzer beaters. I can't say Cinderella stories because they're all number one seeds left, and even who's cutting down the nets. I got my favorite, but I'll hold on to that. I will say this. There are a lot of great individual players, and I think the greatest player in the tournament is going to be the one who cuts those nets down, but we'll see. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action today. The Final Four is on the way, man, and don't be late. Make sure you tap into FanDuel at FanDuel.com and get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, rolling along here on Locked On NFL, as we always do. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was
what you doing, Aaron? Where you at? What's going on?
Where you at? You ain't in a cave. You know, they said that him and DK was hanging out. I was like, what? But no, it's not that. They were actually throwing footballs together. I want you to hear from Chris Carter. When we get back, I'm going to read some stuff from Mike Tomlin. It is a quote, and these are quotes, okay, from Tomlin and whoever wrote the article at NFL.com. But check this out from Chris Carter at Locked On Steelers.
I do not put it past the Steelers to want to franchise tag George Pickens and say, you know, we're going to keep him around for another year and then maybe another year after that, or to sign him to a 3-year contract where you find a way to pay him. And a lot of people probably say, whoa, you're already paying DK Metcalf more money than you've ever paid any receiver ever. But I actually look at that situation and I think, you know what? This might be the time for the Steelers to be aggressive in trying to keep playmakers if they really like their playmakers. And if George Pickens blows up this year with DK Metcalf and the two of them become a heck of a duo, why not sign George Pickens to a big money contract? Because next year you're going to have more money, and you still probably won't be paying a quarterback super NFL money.
That's true. All of that is factual. Taking a page out of the Bengals, who is paying their quarterback a bunch of money. You might wonder, okay, you were talking about Aaron Rodgers. Why did you mention George Pickens? Because George Pickens, he is not Adam Lazard. Alan Lazard. He is not Garrett Wilson. If things don't start going correctly, even if they're going perfectly, George Pickens just might snap, crackle, and pop and just start getting real. Look, this dude making money on the other side. I think this is we've been warning the Pittsburgh Steelers about Aaron Rodgers. I think somebody needs to warn Aaron Rodgers about George Pickens.
Yeah, buddy, because the situation in New York the last couple of years, Garrett Wilson has wanted to say so many things.
You see it. You saw
and he
it.
has not said anything at all. So you give him a lot of credit for the restraint that he's shown. George Pickens, he ain't like that.
Nah.
He's different. He will certainly let it be known how he feels. And Mike Tomlin has been able to manage these personalities throughout his time. Le'Veon Bell, LeGarrette Blount, of course, Antonio Brown, most famously. We have seen him. Yeah, we've seen him handle it. But, man, I just cannot imagine Mike Tomlin have to deal with Aaron Rodgers, deal with DK Metcalf wanting the ball, George Pickens wanting the ball, and his money. Like, I understand what Chris is saying because I don't know how long. If Aaron signs with Pittsburgh, I don't know how long it's going to be. It's going to be a 1-year thing. Is it going to be a 2-year thing? Either way, they'll probably have some flexibility next offseason to where they could afford 2 massive contracts for wide receivers. And if they are able to draft a rookie quarterback next year in a class that should be better, then that helps that rookie immediately, and they have that flexibility of that rookie contract. But, man, are we sure they're going to be able to get to that point? Because if Rodgers doesn't come, they don't have a quarterback. Mason Rudolph 2.0 in Pittsburgh is going to lead to a ton of issues in that locker room for that team. And if Aaron comes and if things go well, are we sure George Pickens going to be cool getting franchised and he's not going to be happy about not getting his full money? Like, I don't know. That's kind of personality that's going to handle that in the kind of way that you would hope a professional would handle that situation.
All right, there's one thing I can tell you. I try to use reasoning, and I go, Has DK Metcalf ever been in a situation where he had another diva receiver? Yes. Him and A.J. Brown were teammates in college, right? And I know college is a little bit different because, you know, you're young, you're wild, and you ain't got no money. Well, at least most college kids, we used to didn't have any money. They got more money now than half the dudes that's, you know, in the lower half of the 53.
I think they were pre-NIL, but they were certainly not
they were still got to
get.
They wasn't missing no meals down there, you know, at Ole Miss. But here's my thing. I want to ask you this question, and I didn't even plan for this, so we got to do this together.
Yeah.
But sometimes these questions just come up. If the Pittsburgh Steelers not only have a good season but win the Super Bowl, whose reputation? Because people get on Mike Tomlin all the time, like especially a lot of people. Man, he's Mr. Mediocre and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
He's just Jeff Fisher winning 2 more games a year and all this. Listen.
What?
Who does it change? Whose narrative gets changed the most? Is it Aaron Rodgers, or is it the way that people talk about Mike Tomlin, like he ain't achieving nothing?
I think for Rodgers, I don't think it's his reputation gets changed the most. He's already going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I do think it's a far better close to his career than if he calls it quits right now after the debacle in New York. Now, that first year, that's not on him. But then, I mean, the Hackett of it all, bringing in Randall Cobb, bringing in Alan Lazard, call him Adam. It doesn't matter because he was terrible up there. Like that whole situation, everyone getting fired, that's on Aaron. But if he can go to Pittsburgh and win a Super Bowl, then, okay, he's got a second one. That only it's re-solidifies, I suppose. But I think for Tomlin, it would be massive because that would really just be one for the haters. All the folks out there who are, I mean, that's insane for anyone to be like, he's Jeff Fisher winning 2 more games, like Mr. 7-9, Mr. 8-8. Like, come on, y'all. Like, Jeff Fisher, get out of here with that nonsense. Like, Mike Tomlin deserves all the respect in the world for the things we talked about earlier, and that's handling the personalities. Because how many coaches were going to be able to handle Big Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and LeGarrette Blount all on the same team, and all the nonsense that went on with that? Like, I don't know. Like, I think if they could win a Super Bowl, considering what they've been the last couple of years, like that would be another notch more on his belt, and that would help elevate what he's been, and probably I think would solidify him as a Hall of Famer as well. Because I don't know if he would be one right now, but absolutely if they win another Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, especially too, like that would definitely have him, I think, in Canton one day. He
would go down to me as one of the greatest leader of men in sports history, and that's where I put Phil Jackson and Pat Riley in those situations. The reason why, let me tell you why I put Phil Jackson in there, because everybody talks about what the 106 championships he won. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about Jordan. Now y'all see what Pippen really is. He probably was like that the whole time. Dennis Rodman.
And he had to do Rodman too.
You see what I'm saying?
I would never.
Horace Grant all pissed off all the time. And then he goes to LA and it's like Shaq and Kobe. They say Shaq was doing things bothering people in the locker room. Kobe didn't like everybody. And then you got to deal with LA and people extorting people and all this stuff out in LA that I've been reading up on. I'm like, Phil Jackson is a magician when it comes to just bringing everybody into his little atmosphere and getting the best out of them. You think about AB. By the way, shout out to Antonio Brown because I don't want no smoke, okay? You think about AB, Le'Veon, Debo was just tough. He wasn't a problem. James Harrison is one of the best men to ever play in this league as far as what type of person he is. But, you know, he could intimidate some people, right?
Yeah, a lot of people.
and then you say Aaron Rodgers and George Pickens, and this dude won 2 championships. I mean, they ought to give him a medal of freedom for dealing with all those people.
Yeah, I just think back to Dennis Rodman in the Last Dance, and us finding out how he asked Phil Jackson for a vacation in the middle of the season,
and they gave it to him.
They let him go, like get it out of his system for like 3 nights. It's just crazy.
And
Can
Mike,
you imagine?
the thing about Jordan was they asked Jordan about it. Jordan said, "I ain't worried about him. He gonna be ready." And this is the ultimate competitor.
Mike said no. We can't let him leave because we're not going to get him back.
Okay. He said he wasn't gonna get him back.
He said no. Are you kidding me? You can't let this guy leave. We're going to get him back.
But I do remember Jordan saying, like, before games, I ain't worried about him. You know, because, it's just
As long as he shows up, he'll be all right.
That's right.
The problem is, will he show up?
Will he show up, right? I don't care. He might have a dress on. Now, he might change his hair color, but as long as he shows up, it just when you listen to stuff like that, and it's a different sport, but it really, really makes you understand. Everybody focuses on play calling. Everybody focuses on the talent procurement, and they forget, like, okay, well, we can move back and get this guy, or we can find. These people are humans with a personality. They aren't just checks. You don't just check boxes. You're getting people. You're getting people, and that's very, very important. You need a person to manage all of that. All right, we're talking draft. Haves and have-nots. Let's get to it. I'm sorry, Cowboy fans, but I'm going to have to put you in a line of fire here. We'll talk about the Eagles and the Cowboys and their different draft strategy and approach. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, so here on Locked On NFL, before Cowboy fans get mad at me, one, I think I include the Cowboys on this show more than anybody because they're just that big of a deal, whether you like them or not. They're polarizing. For the record, Julian and I cover the Jaguars and the Panthers. We ain't got no room to talk about bad teams, but there is something that we have in common with Dallas. We don't win a whole bunch. They win a lot of games, but they don't win championships, and neither do the teams that we represent, right? So I just want to know what it feels like to go into a draft, but you don't really need nothing, man. You're just going to sit there like Baltimore and KC and now Philly does every year. Yeah, whatever falls to us. But then you have the other side. I'm going to play two different clips. One by my man Lou DiBiase up at Locked On Eagles. I'm going to show you how riding high feels. And then I'm going to show you how me, the Cowboys, and Julian all feel when you're searching for that next thing to just get you over the hump. Check out Lou here at Locked On Eagles.
Well, I'm willing to take a big risk on a player if they have upside, if they have traits. Like, I am the ultimate traits guy over production. But Shamar Stewart's production is so bad that this is a massive risk. Like, yes, this is a 90th percentile athlete coming downhill, like 4.5 speed, elite vertical, elite long jump, has a 98th percentile wingspan. I mean, the guy's huge. He's 6'5", 275, 280 pounds. Like, he looks the part. He looks like he could be Myles Garrett if you develop him right. But it's very, very risky. You're really trusting your coaches with this one, but Howie Roseman does take big swings on these kind of players. But when you look at the production, again, it's concerning. A 27% missed tackle rate. That's not good. He struggles when he has to change direction. Like, his bend is not incredible. He didn't have more than 1.5 sacks in 3 straight years. Like, you have to eventually get to the quarterback.
Okay, I know a guy that coached that kid, and he told me when I was on my way to Mobile, he said, watch what happens. He says he can play, just wasn't used correctly. They just had to figure out who he was and what he was, whether he was going to grow into a 3 technique or whatever. This is exactly what I'm talking about. When the rich are so rich, you can go, let's just take him. They did that about Jalen Carter. He had to leave. Dude left the NFL draft to go turn himself into the cops, and the Eagles took him at number 10, and now he's the best defensive tackle, at least young defensive tackle in the league. That is just something that rich teams can just do, and Philly is the perfect place for a dude that needs to try to find himself, because that's exactly what they'll do. They'll make, like Mekhi Becton, he'll find himself in Philly.
Yeah. I mean, like, Stewart comes from A&M, and what do Aggies do? They disappoint. So it's not really like that surprising that, he underperformed. Yeah, well, that's just Texas A&M football program. I think he obviously looks the part, and Philadelphia would absolutely be the place that would get him to play that way. But hell, look at Jacksonville, what y'all got down there, and Trayvon Walker. It's not like he was doing anything in Athens. And you look at a guy like Jalen Walker, his numbers, and even Mike Williams and his numbers. There's a ton of those dudes now in this draft class, especially at that edge spot, that don't necessarily have those numbers that pop out at you outside of Mike Green from Marshall. And again, that's Marshall and Sun Belt. So yeah, I mean, Philly, they can afford to do stuff like that. They can, like you said, they can take chances on a guy who is involved in some not so savory things as far as Jalen Carter and the speeding and the accident that happened there. But it works out for him. And you kind of think that maybe some other teams should try to not stick their nose up and be like, well, we have a better culture here, foundation. No. Y'all need to want to win some games. Like, does it really matter? Are you trying to win games or not? Like, who cares? We don't need choir boys. He just needs dudes who can tackle and catch the ball.
Yeah, we don't come down there to watch y'all cook marshmallows and sing Kumbaya. We come down there to see. It's a gladiator sport. We want to see y'all win at the end of it. But Georgia right now reminds me of North Carolina basketball in the 80s and 90s. Here we go with these analogies again. But Pat Riley said he'll always draft the North Carolina Tar Heel because they'll know how to play. Mm-hmm. They recruit 4 or 5 McDonald's All-Americans every year, and then they go to Chapel Hill and they average 10 points a game, 16, 17. And people wonder if they can get 30. Yeah, they can get 30. It's just a whole bunch of them. That's why they didn't back then. So yeah, I do kind of agree with that philosophy. Shout out to those North Carolina Tar Heels. I had to mention that for you today.
Yeah, I miss it, man, because that's not what they do now. They get one. They get one. Auburn and Alabama and these football schools that couldn't even be bothered to show up to the Final Four and their school makes it. They're now getting all these McDonald's All-Americans. I hate it here.
No doubt about it. So here's the Dallas Cowboys, and here's the have-nots. And they're going to say stuff that Julian and I are very familiar with. Marcus Mosier and Landon McCool, as always, for Locked On Cowboys, dropping some gems.
It's a Friday. We've got no big Cowboy news. So, Landon, let's do a mock draft. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right. So when we do these mocks, we always try to come up with a different scenario. One of the ones we did earlier in the week was trading up from round 2 to try to get like a blue chip player, right? So basically 2 guys that the Cowboys might have graded in the first round. On today's show, we're going to do something different. We're going to go fresh faces, some names that we've maybe talked about, but haven't mocked to the Cowboys very frequently. So with that in mind, let's go to the mock. Let's go to running back, because I think running back is a position where I won't be shocked, Landon, if they wait till day 3 to pick their running back.
Well, and even if they don't wait until day 3, I wouldn't be surprised, if they potentially double dip. These are all guys who I think you could, no matter what you get early, you should be able to pair with some other type of running back that you can find a little bit later in the draft as well.
Very, very interesting. How you have to, you instead of waiting to see who falls, now you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're the Panthers. Now you're searching for people and you're going looking and trying to find ways to get these players. I will give Dallas credit every time we start talking about this subject, though. That Overshown kid that got hurt last year, he'll probably miss this season. Yeah. Great player, right? Dowdle, the receivers, the defensive backs, they not only had Diggs, but Bland set a record for pick sixes. Micah, they have done a real good job of actually identifying talent. They just got to be able to build it and figure out what they need to do to get better. And until Jerry realizes some of this is on him, other than just grabbing those players, I don't know if it'll happen. But it's just a different way of looking at things when you're rich and when you're not rich. And I don't mean in money. I mean in win currency and title currency.
Yeah.
I just want to get back to that. I wish we knew how that felt in our respective cities.
Yeah. I mean, look, for Dallas, I don't really have any concerns about their ability to be able to draft players. I think probably their problem more so has been obviously Jerry and his involvement, even though like his involvement's been probably pretty key in them even drafting some of those players that you mentioned. I think the coaching has left a lot to be desired under Mike McCarthy, and even before that for longer than it needed to be under Jason Garrett. Like they could have found somebody better, you would have thought, and they're probably not doing a great job when it comes to free agency and trying to fill some of those holes because they're bringing in top tier talent into draft, developing them. It's just they don't have the 1 or 2 guys that kind of depth that you really need in order to be at the level where they're winning the games when they matter the most in January, making it to February. So I still look at it as a have, honestly. Like it's the Cowboys. Like they're gonna, as long as I keep saying, as long as Dak is healthy and they keep him around, they're gonna win games. It's just, will they have the coaching and I guess the depth and talent in order to win enough games in January and make it to where they haven't been, I don't think, since I've been alive. I don't know the last time the Cowboys went to the Super Bowl. Like I'm 32 now. When was it? Like
yeah, I was 90 94, 95 that year.
Like I'm of the generation. I'm like, why is Dallas always on TV? Like they've never done anything. So back in the 70s, they were great. It's like, cool. Well, I get why Pittsburgh's on because at least they keep winning, but like Dallas, can we please get them? Like the Fox is basically the Dallas Cowboys network, at least when Troy Aikman was there. But still, now even with Brady and Burkhardt as number one team, it's always Dallas every single week. It's like, my God.
There's two ways to be box office. You can be box office like Floyd Mayweather, which is dominance and brilliance. You can be box office like Adrian Bronner. You can pretend to be dominant and brilliant, but still the story is big because of who you are. And that's where Dallas is right now. But I do believe, I always have to mention this too, Rob Frederick was probably headed to a Hall of Fame career before his career ended. And you would have had him next to Zach Martin for like a decade or a little bit more. It's that they've had some bad luck too, but they swing big and usually they at least get on base in the draft. We'll see if they can turn that into something more tangible for Cowboy fans. I'll tell you what, if you want to know about all the players in the draft, make sure you check out Locked On NFL with Damian Parsons and Coach Keith Sanchez, because I learn from them daily, and I'm older than them. So if I can learn from younger people, you can too. Just make sure you check out those two guys wherever you get your podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Also catch Julian Council over at Locked On Carolina Panthers, Locked On Panthers, and me on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man, the week has just started. I'm sure we'll have a lot of stuff from all week from me and Tyler Rowland on what is going on at the owners' meetings, other than the dude that coaches the Titans, Callahan, sitting there looking like he don't want to be there. He looked like he was at the Daytona 500 in the infield or somewhere. He didn't want to be where those other guys were. We'll talk about him and more people all week long as we get more and more information from the owners' meeting. Y'all take care, man. Thanks for joining.